I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting on an extremely important topic, and that is the insecurity, which we're facing in the area as well as nationwide. So I've asked our parliamentarian, Judy Briganti, to introduce our first speaker. She has many years worked with him in various capacities. So Judy, go ahead.
Thank you, Barbara. It's a real honor to introduce someone who really doesn't need much introduction. He's well known in the area, and he tickled me when he talked about he's run here or run there. This guy doesn't stop running. He either runs to one service project to the other, or to a track meet, or to the church to serve, or to his work that he's been at since I think 2000, as I looked it up, 2014 at the center. He is a true inspiration, and above all, besides his credential of a graduate study in counseling, which helps him understand me at Notre Dame, he also just gives of his servant heart in whatever he does. And this food insecurity thing is not only a necessity for our constituencies, it is a passion for him because it is a need that he can serve. So it is with great honor that I introduce my friend and someone I greatly admire, Mark Mikel.
Oh, thank you, Judy. If I'd have known you were going to talk about me like that, I might have waited to come on later so I don't get so embarrassed. Just so you all know, Judy and I go to church together, have for years, and serve the community in that capacity as well. So welcome. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this tonight. And listening to Jay and I think it was Victoria, the extension folks, it's like, oh my goodness, I better know what I'm talking about tonight. These people know food. And I know food a little bit. I'll be honest, I don't consider myself a foodie per se, but what I do know, to tag off of Judy's introduction, is I do know how to serve. And what we do here at the center, I'll get into that in a little bit, but that's our main purpose, is we just want to serve the community and meet the needs of our community as they arise. A little bit about the center. We began in 1996 in Nappanee. Joanne and Larry Andrews saw a need to meet the need of food insecurity in Nappanee, particularly out at the Meadows at the trailer park on the west side of town. And that was where the original food pantry was. There was a small shed out there that they kept some non-perishable goods in. And I think it was Thursday afternoons, they made it open so that folks could come in and get some food and help make ends meet that way. And then the old church building on 151 South Lock Street across from City Hall had been a congregation known as the Ark. And they disbanded, and Larry and Joanne were able to get that building and move the food pantry into the basement of the building and some offices on the main floor. And out of that sprung a response to a need for some housing issues in Nappanee and in Wakarusa, primarily helping families rehab or expand houses, get them very livable and safe. They did that for a number of years, worked with Habitat. For a long time, we carried second mortgages on homes that were forgiven 10% a year over 10 years. There was a grant that the agency had. And when I came in 2014, we still had some of those on the books. And I had the privilege of being able to sign and record those release of liens that those families had stayed in their homes and been stable for that 10 years. Yeah, the housing, the Habitat stuff, that was on in the early years. And then in the early 2000s, we began to do some medication assistance and a baby immunization clinic. Dr. Lisa Orn saw a need for young parents, not just to get the children immunized, but to give them some parenting skills and talk about child development and monitor the children as they were growing. And that program has grown from one Wednesday a month to up to 4 Wednesdays a month. When I started, within the first year, we had a waiting list of 7 months for that program. And we were fortunate enough to get a grant from the Community Foundation of Elkhart County, raise some matching funds, and hired an RN to oversee that program. And it's well received in the community. It's a free program. We get the vaccinations from the State Department of Health. So the only cost we really have is in the salary of the nurse. Clothing closet started somewhere, I'm guessing around 2007. I was on the board of directors from 2006 to 2011. It was my first real involvement with the center. And again, some volunteers, some staff saw a need to be able to provide some clothing for folks. And it's probably one of our more popular programs now. We have more clothes than we know what to do with at this point. But we open that up on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons when food pantry is open for folks to be able to come in and save some money on their clothing, or if they just need some. And anything we cannot use, we bag up, and it's donated to Faith Mission in Elkhart, so it doesn't go to waste. And if it's something they can't use, they have a program where they turn old clothes into rags, so that they have those for their cleaning purposes. As Judy said, I started in the summer of 2014. Prior to that, I was a therapist and clinical supervisor at Vassar Children's Home. And when the previous director, Karen Stoltzfus, resigned, some folks in Nappanee approached me and said, "We think you ought to consider applying for the executive director position," and here I am. The first week I was here, we were supposed to start a summer lunch program. We were going to provide free lunches to any children 18 and under out at West Park Pavilion. We had some churches that wanted to help with delivery of the lunches and a little bit of programming for the children, and it took off. It went very well. The problem that I ran into that first week is USDA was going to provide the food through Goshen Schools. We were going to be a satellite for Goshen School summer lunch program. And on my second day in the office, Goshen called and said, "We've decided not to help out with that. It's 25 miles away, and if anything goes wrong there, according to the USDA guidelines, we could lose our other 25 sites in Goshen for the Goshen children." So we got our heads together with the Boys and Girls Club, with some folks from the Wa-Nee Schools Food Services, and came up with a menu and a plan, and started passing out lunches to kids. And that has taken off. We've done that every summer since then, up to 5 different sites that we were at Nappanee and Wakarusa. And just some great stories of relationships being built with the kids that come there, and volunteers or the staff that are at those different sites to hand out lunches. In 2018, we were approached by Northwood Middle School. They knew there were some kids that were going through the weekend without food or not enough food. And so we did a pilot program for a weekend backpack program. I bought like a dozen generic looking backpacks and filled them with shelf stable food and dropped them off on Friday afternoon. And then on Wednesday the next week, I'd pick up the empty backpacks the kids returned, and we'd repeat the process. And the year after that, we expanded into the elementary schools in Wa-Nee School, Wakarusa, Woodview, and Nappanee. And we saw that program begin to grow. And then in 2019, I believe it was, or going into the 2019 school year, a guy named Todd Zeltwanger approached me about doing some backpack programs that Cultivate was doing in South Bend. And I'll talk more about that later, but it's good to have Todd on tonight. You're going to hear more about Cultivate in a little bit. We have really, really embraced the idea that kids need to be fed. You know, they can't study, their brains don't develop. They don't have the energy to do what they need to do during the day if they're not getting good calories, if they're not getting good nutrition. And we've really stepped up our game, I think, in the food that we've been providing with that. Barbara, you mentioned changes in the pandemic time. I'll talk a little bit about that now, and then I'll move into some other areas, some stats on food scarcity. When the school shut down in March last year, 2020, they approached us and asked if we could help them figure out how to get meals to children who were going to be at home and might not be getting those meals they were used to getting at school. A lot of those kids, the food they got was breakfast and lunch at school, and not a lot when they got home. Maybe our backpack program on the weekends helped out a little bit. So we met with the director of transportation, the director of food services, Scott Kroner, the superintendent, and pastors from a couple of churches, and we put together a program where we were able to get meals to kids 5 days a week, and on Fridays we were passing out our Cultivate backpacks, the meals that we were giving those as well. And then every other week, we would pack up a box of about 30 to 35 pounds of food to drop off with the backpacks, so those families had some additional foods as well. So from March of 2020 through August, we did that through the summer. That was our summer lunch program again. We helped deliver, get the logistics for over 46,000 meals for Wa-Nee children during that time. And that was a lot of work, a lot of volunteer work, but we were quite proud, quite happy that we were able to make sure kids had food during that time. In 2019, 89.5% of the households in the US were food stable. They were food secure. So that means what, 10.5% were a little bit short. They were on SNAP, they were getting some kind of supplement to be able to make sure that they had enough food. That went up a little bit that was down a little bit from 2018. It was 88.9% of the households were food stable at that point. When we begin to look at 2019, that 13.6% of households with children. So not only is there that food instability at about 10%, but once you throw the kids in there, you're adding about 3 to 4% on how many families are in need of some help. In Indiana, food insecurity in 2018, the rate was 15.2% of the households were in need of some assistance. 2019, it dropped to 13.6, and in 2020, it was 13.5%. So we've seen a little bit of a decline in recent years, but still Indiana as a state runs higher than the national average in terms of food insecurity. For Elkhart County, I found some numbers that said 81% of the families of the children in Elkhart County were eligible for some type of food assistance, whether that was free and reduced lunch, or whether that was the SNAP benefits for their family. And that's figured at 185% of the poverty level. For a family of four, the poverty level is at $26,500. So 185% puts it just a little bit north of 49,000 household income for a family of four, for them to qualify for some kind of assistance. We have looked as a county, the network of food pantries at the food deserts in Elkhart County. And that's food deserts defined as there's no market or grocery store, legitimate market or grocery store within a 10-minute walk or drive from wherever you live. We're not talking about convenience stores. You know, if you think about Wakarusa, we have a couple of convenience stores, but we also have Grandma's Pantry. We have a couple of fruit and farm markets. So, you know, I live just outside of Wakarusa. Judy's in Wakarusa. You know, you can get pretty much anywhere in Wakarusa in 10 minutes. So if you're in a couple mile radius of Wakarusa, you can get to Grandma's Pantry. So that would not be a food desert. Nappanee would not be a food desert, but Goshen and Elkhart have those pockets where people cannot go to get real groceries, real food. It would be the fast food stuff or the convenience store kinds of things. For Wa-Nee Community Schools, at the beginning of this school year, 32.4% of our students were on the free or reduced lunch program. In real numbers, that's 954 students. 954 of our students. Now, when I've talked with other groups and I throw out that 32%, people can't believe that in our affluent communities of Wakarusa and Nappanee, that there would be that many children that would qualify for free and reduced lunches. When we talk about our backpack program, those are the kids we're trying to target and trying to reach. Again, the assumption is if they are in need of a free and reduced lunch, the household probably doesn't have the food that's going to get them through the weekend as well. The backpack program last year during the pandemic, we peaked at 125 backpacks a week that we were delivering. And again, if there's 954 students, and we do know this, that 954 is pretty well split from K to 6 and 7 through 12 grades. And most of what we've given out in the backpack program has been to the elementary schools, a little bit with the middle school still. But I think in the 4 years we've been doing backpacks, one backpack has gone out from the high school. And we've looked at that. We're wrestling with that. We're talking with counselors. We're talking with the school resource officers. They know the kids that could benefit from this. And we think, especially at the high school level, there's a little bit of a stigma to that, to be carrying this backpack. And we've tried to look at ways, how do we destigmatize that? How do we, do we have it in a teacher's room that they can just pick it up and go, and it's a little more anonymous? But we have struggled to get the high school kids involved in that. We know there's a big need there, but we haven't been able to do that. Right now, and this is what really is scratching our heads this year. I'll pick on Todd a little bit. The way this works is I contract with Todd for a certain number of backpacks per week for the whole school year. And I think we're at 70 this year, if I remember right, Todd.
Sounds right. Yep.
So we may need to renegotiate because right now we're at 30 backpacks a week that we're giving out. Some of that is part of our criteria is you need to return the backpack from the week before so we could have it to fill again. Cultivate provides us with these wonderful insulated backpacks that aren't necessarily cheap. And again, we're trying to get our kids, our parents to be involved in the process. We don't want it to just be us taking care of them. We want engagement. Our philosophy, our approach to everything we do, whether it's clothing, medication, food, rent and utility assistance, we want to establish relationship as much as we want to be able to help and meet the need. That's where we think it really makes the impact on the community is if we can have those relationships. I can tell a quick story about this afternoon. We have a gentleman who's one of our regular clients, and he came in today because he had a letter from his probation officer that he was afraid it meant he was getting violated and going to jail. And I sat and listened to our program director, John Andrews, talking with this guy, calming him down while the client is just crying, this grown man crying because he's afraid this is it. And then at the end of it, I'm hungry. I don't have any food. I don't know what to do. And John said, hey, you know what? Let's go in the kitchen. We can microwave some stuff, good cultivate meals that we have that we keep on hand for such an occasion. And John just befriended this man. He's worked with him for years now. And that's the kind of thing we want to see. That's the thing we really work at trying to do here. Again, we're here to help with crisis, but we're here to help people get more stable and more independent in the long run. The food pantry that we have, again, it's been open since 1996, and it's open on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons right now from 1 till about 4 o'clock. We partner and coordinate with the other food pantry in town, Open Door, which is at the old train depot. And it hasn't always been a really friendly relationship between the two agencies. But John Personette, their director, and I, when we both took over our organizations, we sat down and talked and figured out that we're really after the same thing, and that's making sure residents of Nappanee and Wakarusa have food. And so they're open every morning from 9 to 11. So if somebody really needs food in Nappanee, Wakarusa, we can get you food every day of the week. Now, part of what we run into is the hours. If we have a working family that is looking to supplement, if they can save on their groceries, they've got more money for rent or medical or transportation or childcare, then, we're looking at those off-hour kinds of things that we can do. Open Doors open from 4 to 6 on Wednesdays. We're looking at possibly doing one Saturday morning a month so that folks can come in and be served at that point. But what we've seen, well, I'll go back to the pandemic for food pantry. We as everybody did, had to shut things down pretty quickly. And but when you're a food pantry, you don't get to shut down completely. So we reorganized and brought in more volunteers on Tuesday and Thursday who spent the mornings putting together bags of groceries, and clients would pull up to the front door, up to the curb, and we'd take them out to the street and serve them that way. Now, at first it was kind of novel, and our clients, they felt special in getting this curbside delivery thing, but what they missed was their choice. We're huge on client choice in the food. If you come by our food pantry, and we've just moved into a new space. We took the old Boys and Girls Club and renovated it. And the idea there was we wanted to make it a warm and welcoming environment. In my mind, what I wanted to have us create is an environment when our clients come in to shop for their food, they feel like they're in a real grocery store, not in the basement of old church with a lot of mildewy smells and hand-me-down shelves. So it's really fun to give tours because people are like, wow, this is like Martin's or Whole Foods or something like that, the way we've designed and decorated the place. Same thing with our clothing closet. Ed Ernst from Channel 22 came down to do a story. When I took him in the clothing closet, he said, Mark, if you walk me in blindfolded, I would have swore I was in a boutique downtown. So the underlying message we want to give our clients there is you matter, you have dignity, you have value, you have worth. And we're okay spending a little bit more money to make sure you know that. And then make sure you get the food that you want, that's healthy, that's nutritious, that's going to bring the value to you. So clients can come in, they walk around with a volunteer, volunteers help them do their shopping. But again, that's sort of I hate to say guys, but that's how we get that connection. We hear the stories. We listen for that underlying issue that's going on besides the food. The food may bring them in, but more often than not, there's something else going on. And it might be a medical need. It might be a housing need. It might be just some emotional, mental health kind of things that we might be able to direct them and get some help with. But yeah, client choice and during we think that's an important thing for our clients to be able to choose what they want. And at this point, we're unlimited in our visit. We were at 2, we went to 3, and during the pandemic, with folks out of work, we said, come in as much as you need, and we're going to make sure you have as much food as you need. That brings me to our relationship with the Food Bank of Northern Indiana. They're one of our main sources of stocking our shelves. They have the connection with USDA, and they bring us a delivery about once a month, whether we ask for one or not. And it's interesting that since the pandemic sort of calmed down, and I'd say since the first of the year, our numbers in food pantry have actually decreased, where normally we would have 30 to 35 visitors on a given day. We might be 15 to 20 on an average day now. I know it was up a little bit again Tuesday, and I haven't heard the numbers for today yet. But if you came and looked at our warehouse, we are really full. We have food. It's getting into the people now. And part of what's happened with this Food Bank of Northern Indiana USDA connection is with the tariffs that we put on China a while back, and the boycotting that went on, and the subsidies to the farmers. Farmers were still producing food, and the USDA was giving it to the food banks, like the Food Bank of Northern Indiana, who then passed it on to the food pantries. So at one point, we were overstocked in terms of every kind of bean you could imagine. I mean, garbanzos and chickpeas and green beans and kidney beans and pinto beans, black beans. We had pallets of beans. So I'm going to a meeting in South Bend of area food pantry directors, and I put on my businessman hat, and I'm going to negotiate. I'm going to horse trade some beans and get rid of some of this stuff. I'm going to get more fruits and vegetables, or people that really need those. And I sit down, I start wheeling and dealing, and everybody starts laughing at me. I'm going, what? And they said, we all have too many beans. Everybody's getting the same shipment from the food bank. So you're not going to get rid of your beans here, Mark. So we started running a special of beans and rice. I mean, we're giving out cases of beans and cases of rice, and teaching people how do you prepare this? How do you make a nice meal out of this? So there's some of the fun side of what we get to do with this. We can purchase specific items from the food bank. They charge us by the pound. So if we need peanut butter, if we need cereal, if we need some of those things that we sometimes run low on, we can dial them up online and get some things. They have also during the pandemic done mobile food distributions where they bring in box trucks with pre-boxed food and hand those out in different communities everywhere from Plymouth and Bremen to Nappanee to Wakarusa to Goshen, Bristol. They've been all over the Northern Indiana tier getting those things out there. We also get food from Feed the Children. We get a couple times a year, they'll have pallets of things that we can use. And we have an order right now that we're getting ready to go pick up there. I want to talk a little bit about our gardens. And yes, I said gardens, plural, Jay Little. I know you're big on the gardening. We have a garden on Main Street here in Nappanee. It's an empty lot that a few years ago, North Main Mennonite Street Church was operating that garden, planting, harvesting, and bringing the produce to us one of their Sunday school classes was doing that. Well, that church has since disbanded. And so we approached the owner of the lot and said, could we have use of that lot yet to grow some vegetables and things for our food pantry? And he was gracious enough to let us use that. And we have a couple of great volunteers who just take it on as their pet project. And they till it and they weed it and they water it. Actually, there's a family that lives across the street that comes out and waters every night to make sure that the plants are getting what they need. But that provides us with a lot of fresh veggies and things, produce for the food pantry. And then we have a board member who has a hydroponic micro garden outside of town, a greenhouse that grows lettuce and tomatoes year round. And we're always getting donations from them to supplement what we have in the food pantry. And then we got farmers that just bring eggs in. We got one guy, it must be 14 or 15 dozen eggs every week. He comes and brings them in and make sure we have what we need that way. We have the local food drives. Every school in our district at some point during the school year does a food drive and make sure we have our shelves stocked. The Boy Scouts just had one and brought a lot of food to us. We participate in the WRBR radio station's Stuff a Bus every year. The United Way Postal Worker Food Drive, that's one of our annual things as well. Part of what we're looking at doing as well is establishing a cooking class. We have a mother-daughter who came by today and picked up some things from the food pantry so that they can begin to look at what they can do to teach our clients how to take what we have and prepare meals with it. And their grand scheme is going to be to develop a YouTube channel so that folks can dial that up while they're home and watch the preparation of the food there. Our new facility is an old elementary school, so we have a school type kitchen that we're looking at using to teach some classes down the road as well. And then the other big dream we have down the road is to teach canning and preserving some food that way. Dangle the carrot out with, if you come to the canning class, you'll get 12 mason jars, lids, and everything, and a pressure cooker so that they can do their canning at home. We are big on food rescue as well. And that's where our relationship with Todd comes in. But in addition to what we get from Cultivate, I'll let Todd talk about how they do it. But we get, and again, I've been talking nutrition for our clients, but we get desserts from Main Street Roasters, Nappanee Bakery, and yes, even Rise and Roll. Stuff they would have tossed out otherwise, we're able to put out, and our clients can have some treats that way. Charles is here from Panther Pizza. You're going to hear from him and how we work with him on making sure that their pizza that doesn't get sold or used doesn't go to waste. But we try to do that. Cultivate. I can't say enough about that organization. I'll tell you how much I believe in them. A week from Saturday, I'm going to go volunteer. And I'm not sure what Todd's going to have me do, but I know I'm going to work.
Good.
And I'm going to help you out, Todd.
We'll be glad to have you.
Yeah. I can't make the golf outing, but I can make it. I can make it to volunteer
Put you to work
with my Kiwanis Club. Yes. But I'll let him talk about the frozen meals. But one of the things now that we have, going here now lately that we have more storage for frozen and chilled things is we're getting some milk, some condiments, and some things from Cultivate that they aren't able to use in their meals. So that's given our clients a little bit of extra thing as well, stuff there. So without further ado, I'm gonna introduce Todd Zeltwanger. He's the Director of Fund Development for Cultivate in South Bend. And I'm going to let him tell you about what they do and what their needs might be. Todd?
Great. Hey, thank you, Mark. And thank you, Barbara, for inviting me to participate tonight, and all of you that are listening. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'll give you briefly a little history of how Cultivate got started. We have a founding donor that owns a company in Bremen called Headsight. It's an agriculture business. He also owned a restaurant in Bremen that was struggling. And he had a new CFO come to town and who sat down with the owner and said, your restaurant's not doing very well. You might want to think about doing something else. He said, well, I like the manager of my restaurant. So why don't you and he figure out what we can do? If it's not a restaurant, then figure out what we can do to use food to bless people. He said, God has blessed my company. I want to find a way to bless people with food. So our two co-founders, Jim and Randy, took a trip down to Indianapolis in the spring of 2017 to a place called Second Helpings. It's a not-for-profit organization down there. They've been doing food rescue work for over 20 years. And when they got down there, went down the day after the Indianapolis 500 race. So you can only imagine how much food was in the community at that time. And they saw this food rescue operation firsthand. And so in July of 2017, when they came back to South Bend after that trip, they said, let's get this going right here in South Bend. We can do this here. And so a building in South Bend opened up, the old Madison Center Hospital building up on Niles Avenue there, was vacant at that time. And they had a kitchen space of about 3,000 square feet that had a big freezer and cooler and some space where volunteers could come in. And so Cultivate was born, I guess I would say. So it's very new, almost 4 years ago, coming up here in July when the food rescue part of it started. And our mission is to reduce food waste and help feed the food insecure in our community, especially elementary school students. We waste 40% of our food supply in this country, which is way too much. And so that's what we're trying to do, is to reduce that and to use that food that we rescue. And we rescue what's prepared, unserved food. And I'll give you an example of the type of food that we rescue. Not so much in 2020, but before. University of Notre Dame, the home football games up in the stadium there, they would have suites where they would feed people all game long. It was the game long buffet. So you could never run out of food there, right? So they would over prepare food. And we struck a relationship with Notre Dame early on because they have a lot of waste and sustainability goals. And so this came about. Coach Brian Kelly, the football coach of the team, also heard about us and said, we'd like to be involved in some way. So his foundation up there, Kelly Cares, got involved. And so the food would be very good food. I mean, you think about the chefs that would be preparing food at the Notre Dame home football games, and a lot of prime rib and lobster mac and cheese and things of that nature that they would put, have it ready to come down, ready to go out on the line in a hot box. So if the food's out on the line, we never take it. So it's only food that's been prepared and never served. And so that's food that we would go in under the stadium at the end of the third quarter of the home football games. And that food would then be put into our refrigerated truck. We'd cool it down. And then Niles Avenue, where we were at that time, is not very far from the stadium. And the food would be taken over there, put into our cooler, weighed in, and then recorded. So we record every pound of food that comes in. We would rescue, and probably in the seasons of 2017, 18, and 19, we probably rescued an average of 3,000 pounds of food after every home football game. So if you think about that, that's food that would have otherwise been thrown away and wasted. So we're bringing that back and putting it into meals. And so in the winter of 2019, we began a program working with Coach Kelly and his foundation. And he said to us, he said, we'd like to invest in making a better healthy, nutritious weekend meal program in the schools. And is there anything that we could do together to make this happen? And so he met with us and our team, and it gave us some funding to fund some insulated backpacks. And so as Mark described, the meals that are currently going to some of the students in the Wa-Nee school system, we did a pilot program in one of the schools up there called Madison STEAM Academy. It's right next to Memorial Hospital in South Bend. And we sat down with the principal of the school. It's kindergarten through 5th grade school. Probably 98% of those students there on free and reduced lunch. So it was a good place to do a pilot. And the goal there was to see if we could make an impact on the students' attendance, on their academic performance and on their behavior in school when they have adequate nutrition, especially on the weekends. And so when we sat down with the principal there, she said to us, she goes, you know, we don't allow running in our schools except on Monday mornings. And we said, well, that's odd. What do you mean? She goes, well, when our kids get off the bus, they literally run to the cafeteria for breakfast because they hadn't eaten all weekend. And boy, when you hear words like that, you think, hey, we got to do something here. This just isn't right. So we actually went over on a Monday morning to watch and saw firsthand it happening. And so that's the pilot began with 100 students and working with Notre Dame still on measuring these results. We're doing some survey work. We don't have anything hard and firm to report, but we can say that there have been marked improvement in attendance, especially on Fridays when these kids knew that they were going to be taking meals home. We never get into selecting the students ourselves. That is something that the schools all do that we work with, and certainly what Madison did. But it's pretty tough when we started with 100 when many more could have used it. And so that's how it began in the winter of 19. And then in the spring of a month or two later, we also did a school in Elkhart, Woodland Elementary School, that we did a pilot there of 20 students and launched the program. Mark mentioned Ed Ernstison from Channel 22. He actually came and did the story there at Woodland in late March of 19. And on April 3rd of 2019, our lives changed because a video of the interview that he did with us on Channel 22 went viral. And it was just very interesting because at that time we had maybe 4 employees, and all of a sudden this story that they did there, and I think a lot of it was because we were using some of the food from that school that would have otherwise been thrown away because it was food that they had in excess. So we were taking food from that school, bringing it back to our facility, and volunteers would actually put meals together and then send them back to that same school. And they would be distributed to those 20 students. And so when that story went on the wire, and if you go to CBS News website, you'll find if you type in cultivate, there's about 12 million views of that story by people. All of a sudden we're getting phone calls, emails from USA Today, the Today Show, Rachel Ray, asking, how did you do this? And then from other states, from schools saying, hey, can you help us set this up in our community? We got the same problem. We got kids that are hungry on the weekend, and you have a unique, we don't know of anybody else doing the frozen meal with rescued food out there. And so I think that's why it was so popular. And we ended up then in November of 19, actually co-founder Randy appeared on the radio show, and they brought him out and he did a segment there. And so it really gave us some recognition that we really never anticipated or expected. But that's how it began. And I also would say that it's about 1 in 4 children that are food insecure, some of the statistics that you might be interested in. And then as Mark mentioned, the weekend meals, we try to fill that 68-hour gap between Friday lunch at the school and Monday morning breakfast at the school. That was the area where a lot of these students, and I'll mention in St. Joe, Elkhart, and Marshall County combined, the latest numbers that we had is about 45,000 students, K through 12, that are on the free and reduced lunch program in those 3 counties. So we, in our history, we graduated up then, we did the 120 students in those pilot programs. And then we moved up to 400 students in the fall of 19 to begin in St. Joe, Elkhart, and Marshall County, the different school systems in those 3 counties. Then we moved up to 600 students. And in this past school year, we did 800 students, 2021 school year, which was obviously during the pandemic. It was very challenging to get those meals delivered on the weekends because the schools were not always in session. And I know Mark and his volunteer base down there did a lot of door-to-door deliveries of meals. with some local churches and other volunteers helping. So that was amazing to see happen. And so our goal for this coming school year in the fall is 1,000 students,
Wow.
3 counties, to provide 6 frozen meals every single weekend during the school year. So that'll be 6,000 meals a week that we will be producing and distributing within the 3-county area. And certainly Mark in the center there with the partnership with Wa-Nee Schools has been incredible. It's gone very, very well. And we're hoping to possibly expand in other Elkhart County schools, corporations in the coming year, as well as in St. Joe and Marshall County. We have rescued, since we started in July of 17, we have rescued 1.5 million pounds of food in almost 4 years' time. Food, again, that would have otherwise been thrown away and wasted. And so we soon figured out that we were not going to be able to stay on Niles Avenue. That building was quickly running low on space for us. People were stepping on each other, getting a little irritable. So we knew we had to find another location. And one opened up on Prairie Avenue in South Bend, so we've gone now from 3,000 square feet to almost 11,000 square feet in a building that was formerly owned by the South Bend Tribune. And they put it up for sale in 2019. It was a bare bones building, but we were able to secure it with the help of some very generous donors and a bank that believed in our mission that got us in there. In January of 2020, we moved in. We have a base of volunteers that are incredible. We have over 500, probably more than that by now in our database, and we could not do the work that we do without each and every one of them. Individual people sign up to be volunteers. Our website is cultivateculinary.com. People can sign up online to come in and do a 2 or a 3-hour shift. We have many businesses that bring groups in, many churches, many families. And it's a great bonding time, great opportunity to come in and help put meals together or put meals in bags or whatever it might be. When the pandemic hit, we were very, very concerned. We thought everything's shutting down. All the events that we would rescue from, not only home football games, but from weddings, banquets, just other events that were happening around the communities that we would rescue, and they're all closing down. So we said, if we don't have food, we don't really have a program anymore. But what happened was in the month of April of 2020 alone, we were well known because of the viral video and other things that people were calling us saying, hey, we're shutting down. We've got this food that we're going to have to throw away. Will you come and get it and take it? And so they were either bringing it to us or we were picking it up. And we rescued just in the month of April alone about 100,000 pounds of food. And we said, hey, I think we're going to be able to survive here and make this happen. And and then other sources of food became available. So we had to essentially flip our model from prepared, unserved food to a lot of unprepared food. Mark mentioned the USDA. We did get a supply of food from them. And there's some other sources now that we've tied into that are sending us a lot of unprepared food. So we have a kitchen in our facility. We have a chef now, a couple of chefs that actually cook the food that goes into our meals. So we'll see if that flips back once things begin to open up more and more events start happening. But just in 2020 calendar year alone, I mentioned earlier 1.5 million pounds total in 4 years. Well, 800,000 pounds of that was just in 2020 alone. So it was an incredible thing that partnering with some other folks and in our community there, that we came together. We still do every Friday morning at 7:30. We have what's called now the Emergency Food Initiative. It's a Zoom call for about 30 to 45 minutes every Friday morning with the food bank, with the city of South Bend, with Notre Dame, other pantries that come into the call, and that we just talk to each other. We say, hey, we have a problem. Let's work together to solve it instead of everybody trying to do it alone. And that's really been exciting and encouraging, and it continues today. And I think it'll continue for a long time to come. One of the things the pandemic did is it opened up a new opportunity for us as we became aware of all this food out there in the system. Mark mentioned milk, eggs, bread. Those are things that we're still getting in. So we've now hired a food procurement specialist full-time who's out there identifying sources of food and bringing it in. And then we've also got some new software we're going to be launching soon to send to so that each of our pantries in the 3 counties, the smaller food pantries, can check and see what we have coming in and then place orders to get that food so that they can take advantage of it. Because we were hearing that they just weren't getting enough of the right foods from the food bank. It just wasn't providing a steady supply of these items. So we thought, hey, if we can help in this way, let's help fill that gap. And that's what we're doing. We're talking about even the possibility of adding a community freezer on our property, a big freezer outside that pantries could come and kind of be a self-serve type storage facility where they could come and get things. Because the smaller pantries, as Mark can attest, I'm sure, that just don't have a lot of storage space, a lot of freezer space, cooler space. And if we can help provide that for them temporarily, before they can, and then they can come get the product from us. We are obviously donation based. We don't sell our meals, so we don't generate revenue. As I mentioned, we had a founding donor, and now my role in fund development is to secure donations from individuals, from companies, from foundations, from churches, from service clubs. Those are the 5 main categories of donors that we get. If you're interested in either volunteering or getting involved with us, our website, again, cultivateculinary.com, will tell more about it. And as I lead into introducing Noah from Meat Hunger, I'll mention livestock donations. Area farmers that might be listening or would be aware of tonight's presentation. We would take donations of unmarketable livestock. We received, when things were shutting down last spring and all the systems were being flooded, or just you couldn't get animals through the system because of the pandemic. And so farmers were having to euthanize and other things like that, some of their animals. And I received a phone call from a local hog farmer. And he said, Todd, I've got 400 pigs for you if you can take them, and I'll donate them to you. Boy, just think of the amount of protein that would provide, 400 hogs. The only problem was all the local butcher shops were so full, we could only get 70 of those pigs processed. But it helped us. And we being a not-for-profit, we can send an in-kind donation letter to any farmer. They can then turn in for their taxes and receive a benefit from that. And so that's really how Meat Hunger. I'll introduce Noah Zimmer to talk to you about he and his sister and what they did, and how we got acquainted with them. And it's a very interesting story. I'll let him tell you about it. And then if there's questions at the end, we can answer those. So Noah, take it away.
Sounds like my turn. All right. Well, I'd like to thank everyone for having me here. As Todd said, we've had an interesting story with Cultivate. I am from a group called Meat Hunger, which was started by me and my sister with the goal of fighting against food insecurity in St. Joseph County, particularly with children. As Todd said, about 1 in every 4 children within St. Joseph County were struggling with hunger. And me and my sister found out that these children are only part of about 40,000 people who face food insecurity every single day. And me and my sister have always been kind of go-getters in terms of trying to get something done when we see a problem. And with our resources through 4-H, we were able to convert my sister's livestock project from what used to be where she'd have a buyer's group that would donate to her project every single year, and then she could continue it. We converted her buyer's group into, instead of supporting her project, which she was getting out of, going towards paying for other animals from other 4-Hers, and then using those animals to be processed and then donated to places like the Northern Food Bank of Indiana. And eventually we actually met everyone from Cultivate, such as Todd, and they told us what they were doing. And we just saw the passion there. We had the same passion that they did. We wanted to help out, and they actually had this huge thing going. So we teamed up with them and we decided to start donating our food to them. With partners such as Hooters Feeding the Hungry, it was made possible because they would actually underwrite all the processing fees for us. So our goal every single year has just been to get donors to pay us so then we could get a financial pool together in order to then purchase the animals at the livestock auction from other 4-Hers. Our idea was to help other fellow 4-Hers out with their projects while at the same time doing something right and helping fight food insecurity. So we started us off just thinking that once we go off to college, it wouldn't take off too much, but that we could do something with the time we had. And we ended up raising in 2018 when we started about $8,000 or so. And we actually were able to purchase about 23 animals, and that's mostly hogs. But then to our surprise, we actually were donated 42 animals, all from other fellow 4-Hers or from 4-H in general. And there's things such as 42 dozen eggs were donated, and about other just food-based items such as non-perishable food. And we ended up being able to, I guess, cultivate 24,000 protein-based servings or 6,000 pounds of meat in just 1 year alone. With that, there's about $7,000 or so that was underwritten by Hooters Feeding the Hungry, and we were able to just turn all of that into protein-based servings that went to the public. And we just were shocked. We did not expect such a big thing to happen. A lot of people were so on board with it, and they were already asking us, okay, so what are you doing for next year? So we decided, you know what, we'll keep this going. And in 2019, then we upped the ante. We got about $11,000 and purchased about 24 hogs and a few cows and other animals. And we were actually donating 57 animals. And we ended up getting about 35,000 protein-based servings. So once again, we already went up about 11,000 protein-based servings in just 1 year. And we just had this positive forward momentum. I used some of my skills with graphic design to make brochures to hand out to people. We had our own logo. We got involved with other people. It was just a huge thing that people in our community were able to come together and help do something great. But then 2020 hit, and that's when, as you all know, COVID happened. And we were worried, just as everyone else was, about what to do. And we had already raised about $25,000 from donors and the like, but the fairs were not going to be happening. We tried to reach out to them, and some 4-Hers were able to still give us a lot of their projects and their animals, and we were able to pay them. But then we had this fascinating thing happen where a bunch of farmers and other people had animals that they couldn't do anything with, and they were just willing to donate them if we could find the way to process them and take care of them. So we ended up actually, through COVID in 2020 was our biggest year. We went from 2019 about 35,000 protein-based servings to getting about 53 animals purchased and 55 animals donated. And that translated to about 86,000 protein-based servings. So it was actually weird that in the pandemic, despite everything, everyone was still able to come together and make such a huge thing. And it spiked out of control. We were taken aback in such awe that this could happen. So overall, Meat Hunger in our 3 years, we've been able to provide about 145,000 protein-based servings, which is about 36,000 pounds of meat and protein to children who need it and to whoever else through people like Cultivate and the Food Bank of Northern Indiana. And me and my sister we've just been shocked. We can't believe that this has happened. So now we've used this quote that I'd like to share actually, and it is let me see if I can find it here. I had it pulled up. It is from Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, for indeed it is the only thing that ever has. Our goal has been to forward this program on to other youth development. So people, especially in 4-H youth, can take this over when we eventually can't have the time to do it because of college and other things, but then they can take it over and continue it. So we've liked to prioritize education of the youth, so they can get involved in helping the community. We want to keep this thing going. We wanted to help fight food insecurity, which we have, and we just wanted to make a difference and just tell people that even if you have an idea that's super small, but you have the purpose of wanting to help and the drive, you can do pretty much anything to help, and it can blow up like Meet Hunger did for us. And I just wanted to encourage everyone, like, if you have an idea or if you want to help, which that's why you're here, keep that feeling, keep wanting to help, and eventually you can have stuff like this happen.
Thank you so much, Noah. I love the passion and the enthusiasm. I sitting here as one of the older guys that does the food work end of this. It's encouraging to see somebody as young as you that's this passionate about making sure people have food. That's fantastic work you're doing there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Next, we're going to have my friend Charles Lanham speak to us from Panthers Pizza. Charles and I share a really unique relationship. So Charles, I'm going to turn over to you and let you tell the folks about that.
All right, great. So when we opened in January 2018, we were only open for dinner, and my plans in the very beginning were to open for lunch, and that actually happened in August of 2019. And we have been neighbors with the center and got to know Mark and their mission and their passion with everything. And with lunch that I wanted to do pizza by the slice, which I knew there would be a lot of unused or unsold product that would go to waste. And I didn't really like the idea of that. And then talking with Mark and John Andrews at the center, they were, open to taking the unsold product. And it's been very easy and a very good relationship with that. And so when they were right behind us next door, it was really easy. Whatever we didn't sell, we would take over there. And it was funny because a lot of their clients was kind of looking forward to the times when they would get pizza from here. And so they kind of got to know when that we sold pizza from 11 to 2. And so that they would come right around 2, or, they would be getting some pretty good pizza that's not chain pizza, that's got a lot of toppings, a lot of cheese, all that stuff. So it's been worked out really well. And then they've since they've moved to the Boys and Girls Club location, we still are doing the same thing, but now they are coming to get it. They usually bring a container, and so we're kind of swapping as we go. So we usually give them pizza, they're bringing us an empty container. So it's still working out great for us, and I feel good that we're not throwing all that away and it's going to good use. And I couldn't be any happier for that, and everything is going well with it. So
Well, thank you very much for your donations of food. It's really wonderful to see, local food service enterprises get involved. And
Barbara, can I interrupt? This is very rude to interrupt you, but
no,
I have to tell you that Charles was my student at Mary Beck Elementary. And he reached out to me lately and found out the connection. And I am going to go for pizza. So Charles, I am so proud of you.
Thank you. I'm just glad that I'm able to, be a part of this community and help out with the donations like that. And we do a lot of other stuff with the community, helping many ways. So I feel like we fit in here really well, and we're on our 4th year here, and it's going pretty well. So.
Well, Judy, I'll go with you. And in fact, Charles can vouch. I have my credit card on file there. I do. And it's just an absolutely superior product. He refers to it as monster pizza.
Yes, and actually some of the employees of the center has referred to it as like dinosaur pizza because it's so massive, the size and the toppings and the amount of cheese, and it's not your chain type pizza by any means. So,
Well, you're obviously not the chain type of entrepreneur. I think it's wonderful that you're involved locally this way. And it sounds to me like the center has made it easy for you.
yes.
So, you know, we would hope to see a lot more community participation because
Yeah,
obviously
that would be great.
this is
So,
a big
yeah.
issue. A big issue. Are
They
there-
also have good salads. I'm a big salad purchase.
Yeah, Mark
guy.
got a pretty monster salad the other day.
It was a monster salad, and you can choose your toppings on that as well.
Yeah, and you know, now we've added ice cream to the menu. We have a hard scoop ice cream that's super premium. So yeah, we're always improving, adding new things, and trying to you know, better ourselves and help the community more, and just kind of, yeah.
Well, it's great. And thank you for participating.
Yeah, and I'm glad I reached out to my my teacher from elementary school, Judy. I'm looking forward to seeing her, and so
Great.
it's kind of neat.
Well, what we'd like to do at ACT Nappanee is our next step in this food insecurity program is we have a booth at the Friday Fest on June 11th, and we're going to make that a food drive and also have a little cash box there in case people want to donate, you know, cash or checks. Because I've come to understand through my discussions with Mark and with Todd that dollars go a long way as well, that they enable you to buy a greater variety of things from the food banks and so on. So maybe Charles will pop over to Panthers Pizza with a little notice to put in your window about the food drive on June.
And also when there's a lot of events and stuff in town with the Friday Fest and Visit Nappanee and stuff, we're involved a lot with that. So actually on the Friday Fest, you'll find us selling pizza by the slice at those events as well. However, we won't be able to attend the Taste of Nappanee this Saturday, but we look forward to doing most of the Friday Fest events, Pizza by the Slice. And of course, the Apple Festival is huge for us as well. We've sold Pizza by the Slice in our parking lot during that time, and just a great time. So we've really missed it last year and looking forward to having it again this year.
Well, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you all very, very much.